Welcome to Wild Meridian. Today I'm joined by the brilliant Jen from Global Citizen Astro, and we're diving into the astrology of one of the most influential and polarizing figures of our time, Elon Musk. But rather than speculating on his personality or business decisions, we're keeping it grounded in astrology, breaking down his natal chart, how it interacts with the US Sibley chart, and what astrocartography reveals about his relocation and global influence.
Yes, we're going to explore essentially what the stars suggest about Musk's role in shaping technology, space travel, and even how his planetary placements align with key moments in US history. But basically, looking at the synastry of his chart and the US Sibley chart, which is wild. Um, we'll also look at how relocation astrology plays into his big moves, like leaving California for Texas, and what his astrocartography lines suggest about his past and also his future within this country. Yes.
Yes. And before we jump in, a quick note, we're using the whole sign house system for this analysis. And while Musk's birth time was around 7:30 a.m., has only recently surfaced with a 13-degree Cancer ascendant. It's not right on the edge of a sign change, so we feel pretty confident about this placement.
Yeah, I definitely do, especially considering it puts his ascendant ruler as the moon in Virgo in the third house, which that's where, according to the ancients, the moon got its joy in the third house. It adds like a layer of like analytical perfectionist streak to his personality. Like, the ascendant ruler, that's the captain of the ship. So moon in the third, like super like perfectionist, definitely tracks well with how he communicates and operates. Also, the most obvious thing, which is Tesla, like the car. The third house is like cars, transportation, short distance travel, all under the third house. So I feel like the Cancer ascendant definitely, I'm pretty
Really
positive.
fits the bill. Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's be clear, Cancer risings tend to have these round faces like the full moon itself. So,
Yes.
with that in mind, professionally in the astrology, casual in conversation, let's get started.
All right, let's go.
And let's pull up his chart.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
Here we
yeah,
go.
just look at
Okay,
that.
so where do we start here? This
You
is
know, the first thing that popped into my mind was his
uh-huh.
whole conversation on Rogan that led to him saying that empathy is a problem in the US. He's a Cancer, but Cancers can be really ambitious.
They can be because there's that shadow side of Capricorn with Cancer, right? And there's also with Cancer, I'm always thinking of the shell, right? Like that hard exterior because they're so sensitive on the inside. They're so emotional, like the emotions just like wax and wane. And I mean, you have some Cancer placement. You have a fairly prominent Cancer placement, so you're familiar with that. I have my
Mm-hmm.
Mercury in Cancer. I understand that where it's like there's that need, feeling that need to hide, but sometimes you have to like in order to like, but you have to put on a tough persona that's
Mm-hmm.
like not really it might not be, it might come off then to other people sometimes as like essentially kind of like careless and mean, when on the
Mm-hmm.
inside it's actually just because you're like
Yep.
extremely sensitive, very
Right.
sensitive, potentially
Exactly.
insecure. No, all the love in the world to Cancers, of course, there's that
Yeah.
nurturing, they are nurturers. They're like, they're able to take care of people, but there's that shadow side of Cancer too that happens sometimes if they're not like tapped in to being comfortable with that side of themselves, that they do create that really hard exterior ego to
Mm-hmm.
cope, to
Yeah.
push the feelings down.
And right there on the ascendant, that's just like who
Mhm.
this individual is.
Yeah.
And with it conjunct that Mercury,
Yes.
you've got that protective mind. I've always thought that um, Elon was not somebody who spoke of the details, like
Mhm.
almost like he kept that part of what was going on internal. So he spoke it with these broad
Yeah.
strokes without any specific individual. Coming from a science background, when you go to describe something, you really have to build up upon the information when you take large amounts of information and condense it into an easily understandable form to the public. You
Mhm.
want to add in these little sprinkles of specifications, and like Musk
It's
doesn't
that
do that at
Virgo.
all. He's
It's like,
just
is
like,
that Yeah.
Broad strokes.
It's that, yeah, that that the ruler being that moon in Virgo. Also, Mercury gets its joy in the first house, right? If you
Hmm.
remember correctly. So communication, like here's the thing, because typically like a Mercury Cancer is going to be a lot more shy usually, right? They're not very outspoken. They're not
Yep.
very, as a general rule, depending on their like exceptions such as these, where it's like it's conjunct the ascendant 13, 14. This is kind of why I feel like this is probably pretty accurate. I can't imagine that his Mercury, just based on like knowing that he is such a prominent public figure and his voice is just out there, that that his Mercury, being that close to the ascendant, it just makes sense. Um,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And this is his natal chart. For anybody who is studying these natal charts, this is his natal promise. And this is taken from South Africa, where it sounded like he had kind of a pretty, what we'd consider upbringing between bullying and his parents getting divorced. Um,
Yeah, his Paran lines too that he had around that area were interesting because he had, looking just into the astrocartography,
mhm.
to take it there yet, but because we're gonna get more into that in a little bit, but Saturn moon Paran right there where he grew up. So it's like
Oh,
exactly what you just said, like reflected, reflected of that.
difficult. Yeah, yeah, challenging. And
Yeah.
you look down in his fourth house, that Libra fourth house could have been very sweet, but then he's got Uranus down there,
Uranus is
change.
there,
Yep.
and its ruler is Venus in the 12th house, right? So that could indicate some secrecy around the home or some,
Oh, 100%.
yeah, especially with Saturn there. Saturn is, not necessarily his malefic, but it is a malefic.
And it's
Um,
at 1 degrees. When you get into those shoulders between,
yeah.
27 to like 3, it's really powerful.
Mhm.
Its energy tends to
Yeah,
be more condensed.
for sure. I don't know if you noticed too, like there's a he, the double yod thing that he has going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was
Um,
just looking at that. Can you
okay.
explain the yod? I don't
Yeah,
know.
so the yod aspect pattern is it's called the finger of God. Also, it's a ancient, goes way back to, or astrological origins, Hebrew astrology, Babylonian astrology. Basically, like people with a yod aspect pattern in their birth chart, um, it just kind of denotes that they're here for a very specific mission, kind of. It's the yod is it's pointing to like the apex planet or the apex point where it's pointing essentially shows like what that mission for that person is in this lifetime. It's really a fascinating aspect pattern because if you study like prominent figures and people that are like well known, like they almost always have that aspect pattern in their
Yes.
chart, like in
Yep.
one way or another. It is wild. And like especially when they have it double like this, like it's crazy. Like anytime like I have clients that have it, I always want to make sure that like they know like hey, well, you're working with something potent here. You're working with something powerful if you harness it right. That being said, like, it's crazy because it's like you look at the larger than life figures that have had like this double yod pattern, and it's like you got everyone from the musician Prince to Adolf Hitler. Not
Yes.
to bring in that comparison right now with everything, but we're just strictly talking about the astrology, but
Yep.
it's that's what, you
Yeah,
know,
it's not uncommon to see that extra emphasis wherever it falls express itself beyond your local community. It tends to go global at
yeah, it
some
tends to,
point, depending
yes,
on, and this is
for
something
sure.
we can get into with cyclocartography, your
Mhm.
chart will activate different areas at different
Yeah.
times. And if once those yods get activated, man,
That's true. Yeah, transits to the apex point, which is where it's pointing. Different astrologers, they have different like references for like for how they'll use the yod. Like some of them will only count it if the apex point is the slowest moving planetary body, or they won't count it if it's like at the midhaven, a planetary or like a um if the apex point is like an angle or something like the part of fortune or north or south node, they only. So for me personally, I have a pretty loose interpretation of a yod, like especially just because like from looking into it, looking into the public prominent figures that have had it, I feel like it's a pretty loose, like for example, like his yod here, which furthermore, like it's a sextile between two planets, right? And then a quincunx between those two planets to that apex point. I don't think I described that part earlier. That's like the main
Hmm.
thing of it. But here he has it between his Pluto in the third, Jupiter in the fifth, and it's pointing up here towards that. Both they're both in quincunx aspect to the midhaven, the MC up there, which is in Aries, and the midhaven, of course, is your career. It it makes sense, the other yod is between his sun, moon here, and then it's pointing towards the north node in Aquarius in the eighth house, which is fairly closely 5-degree conjunction with his
Well,
Mars,
and let me
right?
just point out the
Yeah.
eighth house isn't just like the house of death, but the house of other people's money or
Yes.
other people's accomplishments. And Elon Musk is known for taking over those things.
Yeah, that's been a recent thing. And it's interesting too we'll get into it a little more later with the overlaying of the like US Sibley chart with his chart. There's a lot of stuff with like handling other people's money, right? There's a lot of
Yes.
themes going on with that. With and also it's also passive income, right?
And yet look at that Mars. And it's
Yeah,
like, it's not just other people's money, but it's in the sign of Aquarius, which is the sign of the people and
literally,
communities
yes.
and technology. And I mean, that just speaks. And his North
Volume.
Node is there. And
Mhm.
your North Node, head of the dragon, he's like insatiable.
Mhm.
He's
Yeah,
just eating,
he can't
eating,
get enough of it.
eating.
Yeah.
I
And if
mean,
you
if you
believe
can't get more literal than that.
Mhm. For sure. No, and if you believe that the nodes are connected with fate and destiny and that sort of thing, then it's essentially kind of like what he came here in this lifetime to like achieve.
Do, yeah.
Um, but yeah, you look at that South Node in Leo, he's got to let go of that ego. If we're looking at that's people with the South Node in Leo, they're here to it's he's yeah. So anyways, what
Well, and
else?
then also that can bring an ambivalence around like money. That's like
Mhm.
making his own money is probably a well-oiled habit of past lives.
Oh, definitely, because it's in the second house too,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So we're looking at like coming from money or being, having that comfortability plenty of lifetimes with money. Like if you're looking at this from the lens of like a past life astrology perspective, you would look at this and say and go like, "Oh, this man has been a king in a past life. This man has been like in charge of the land and had financial abundance before and like that Leo the South Node in Leo in the second house, um those themes but what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought.
No, that's okay. You were just saying like if you were looking at the evolutionary
Yeah.
astrology of it, you
Mhm.
could look at this and go, oh, well, that would be like a past life influence.
Yes. And also, I mean, if you're looking at it furthermore and what he should be doing in this lifetime, it's giving back. Which, it's things are complicated, this is astrological, not political, so I'm not gonna get into that,
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
because
it would really
very
depend
complex.
on, I know
Yeah.
individuals personally who are really excited that his idea of going beyond the
Mhm.
moon to Mars is furthering us so that could be considered, just the idea of like pushing that. We all have ideas about what should be given and to where. So those
That's
are
true.
personal.
That's very true. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So those are some of the main things. Another thing, that I found so interesting when looking into things and doing research, I didn't know that he had a because he's how many kids does he have at this point, right? Like 13.
13.
13.
Lucky
Yes.
number 13.
Yeah, he had actually, and there's that whole like he's known for that he believes that it's that overpopulation isn't an issue, it's underpopulation. And he's like really promoting like, childbirth and having more and more kids. And it's just interesting because there's that fifth house of children and Jupiter being
Mm.
in the fifth house of
Oh, and
children.
on that
More, more,
27th
more,
degree,
more.
man. Oh, and in
Yeah.
Scorpio too.
And in
Yeah, I
Scorpio, so
mean,
like intense, but also if we're looking at it from the perspective of it's ruled over
Mars.
by Mars, which is that malefic, which obviously his sun being so close to the ascendant descendant axis, we're like unsure of, is Mars his because it's so close, is Mars his malefic, is Saturn? I lean more towards, I think Mars. I think this is probably correct.
Yeah.
For a few reasons, but also I did not realize that he had actually had like his first child was born stillborn.
Yeah.
So he went through that trauma.
Mm-hmm.
That is a trauma. So it almost, so yeah, so the fifth house being ruled over by that malefic,
Mm-hmm.
by Mars in Aquarius, in the eighth house, which is a house of loss. Um,
Yeah.
I think that what that messed him up a little bit because it only, it only kind of makes sense then that like he's he has this obsession, right? Scorpionic obsession with having more kids, because his first one was lost.
Well, and if you see how close Neptune is to that placement in Neptune being this, like screen or mask, or can change the way you view a certain topic.
Mhm.
Can bring about different ideas. Oftentimes, it tends to be spiritual, but having children is a very in my opinion, spiritual
Yeah,
practice on either
yeah.
end. And if something that
Uh-huh.
traumatic occurred early, he could just switch and change his opinion about the roles of a
Mhm.
father and seeding opportunities of
That's
his
true.
his offspring.
Mhm.
That could have
Mhm.
affected him personally. Again, we go back to that second house in ego. Like he probably took it as like, oh, I could lose. He may view them as his ultimate legacy. I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. But yeah, I just thought that Jupiter, that Scorpio Jupiter in the fifth, ruled over by that Mars in the eighth,
Oh
was
yeah,
really telling, of
absolutely.
what. And it's interesting too, because sometimes if you didn't know that, you wouldn't be necessarily sure. But I think when we had talked about this the other day, you made a good point too, with that malefic being in the eighth and ruling over the fifth house of children, and it being like he's got to pay out all these baby mamas, like also like because the eighth house is kind it let's if we're gonna pick an alimony house, it's gonna be the eighth house, right?
Other people's money. I gotta hand them out. Well, and it's an
Yeah.
Aquarius too. It's like
Yeah.
it's literally the community. Like he's seeding
Yes.
the community.
Multiple, multiple ladies
Yep,
getting
multiple
attacked from
ladies.
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Well, let's do you have anything else you want to say in
um,
regards to his natal chart?
I think I pretty much covered everything that I had written down on the in
Cool.
my notes here.
Love it. Let's
Yeah.
move on to the
Mhm.
actual chart. So Jen's going to pull up
Or the map.
Astrocartography for Elon
Yeah.
Musk.
Yeah.
And we can show you what a natal chart looks like when it's imprinted on the globe. And this is the most important thing when you get an astrocartography reading, because this will be your chart forever, no matter where you go in the world. Once you locate to a different area, we can look at relocated charts and how that influences you in that area. But for the rest of your life, your natal chart is your standard,
Yeah. Yes. So let's get into that. Yeah, we could dissect his chart for like forever because
because that's how charts work.
yeah, because that's how, yes. It's like a thousand pointed circle.
I mean, yeah, if we really wanted to take like 10 hours and just go through every single transit and moment in his life, and you can do
Yeah.
that. And that's the
Yeah.
cool thing about astrology, and then build those patterns around that.
Mhm. All right. So let's see. Okay. So born somewhat close to a sun ascent. Right. So the way it works too, right? If your sun is on close to the ascendant in your natal chart, right? It's because you're born close to your sun ascendant line. That's how it works. So of course we're looking at, South Africa. He's close to his sun ascendant line, and his Mercury ascendant line. And it is interesting too, in a way, I feel like, because it's like he is like what he's known for here is very much so being South African and his South African accent, with that Mercury
Mm-hmm.
being on the ascendant. That's another thing that's kind of interesting too. So with that Mercury on the ascendant, that tends to happen sometimes for people that are like known for the accent is a part of them in one
Oh
way
yeah,
or
because it's
another.
in the first house of who you are. I
Yeah,
can't.
yeah.
What's showing on the screen right now is just his chart. I don't know if you can switch it out
Oh,
to
I had put the
share.
maps up. I'm not
I
sure.
know
Let's
it's
see.
it's easy
Yeah,
to forget.
we're
Oh,
good.
is this Astro Gold? Because this looks so much better than.
It does. It's so much better. But solar fire is by far better because you can zoom in closer. So I definitely
Hmm.
looked up the stuff on Solar Fire. But yeah, it's so much prettier on Astro Gold,
Oh,
and it's so much
absolutely.
easier to use my Mac for anything else. So there's that. Yes. So
Oh,
he's
look at that. Oh, and
yeah.
the MC.
So
Yeah.
Mercury, yeah, so basically like he was born close to his Mercury ascendant line, Sun ascendant line, of course, because he has Mercury conjunct the ascendant in his chart and the Sun rising in his chart as well. That's how locational astrology works, right? If you have any planets close to major angles in your chart, they're going to be there around your birthplace in the map.
And for
Um,
anybody who wants to know what those angles are, it's house 1, 4, 7, and 10.
yes.
And that's the ascendant, IC, descendant, and MC.
Mhm. Which the ascendant, the first house is going to be all about you, your sense of self, all of that. So he's got the sun on the ascendant going through South Africa, Mercury on the ascendant going through South Africa. As we said, he's very much, his South African accent. He's very much known for being South African. He really, as much as lately it seems like he doesn't want to, as much as wants to be American.
He really does. It's so interesting when you look
Uh,
through his biography how he had gone to school in Canada
uh-huh,
because he thought it would give him a better chance at becoming an American citizen, in which he ultimately did become.
uh-huh.
Um,
Interesting. So
yeah,
let's look at Canada and see
yeah,
what's
in
going on there.
2002. So he, in
Huh?
1988, he moved to Canada and gained Canadian citizenship, and then applied to a University of Pennsylvania in 1992 and graduated in 1997. And then in 2002, he became a US citizen. That seemed to be a very important thing for him. He just publicly stated he felt there were more opportunities in this country.
Hmm. So where in Canada? I'm curious, where in Canada did you say that?
Quebec.
Quebec.
He ended up in Quebec. I didn't write it down, but I know it's there.
Uh-huh.
I put it. Where did I put it? I think I did screenshots of it. Um,
Right. Let me see here. Well, I'm going to use the feature that's going on in Astro Gold where we
yeah,
can relocate his chart to that area and see what shifts here. So Quebec, here we are. Okay. So Taurus rising, so that yeah, let me see. He's got so he's close to his Mercury icy line here. That's interesting because when Mercury's on the icy, it's all about kind of like communication in the home and around the home. And Mercury, of course, is like studious and studying. And so I imagine if he did go to university there that he spent a lot of time at home, probably head in the books. Um, do you see what I'm looking at?
yeah. It said Queen's University, Canada, is located in Ontario. So
Okay.
yeah, so that's where we're at. Yeah. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, even in his, the little bit of the biography I picked up online, it seemed like he was
Mhm.
always into books anyways, kind of like an escape, which is common for kids in tough
Right.
family
For sure.
situations.
Yeah, definitely.
So then he moves to a location where that Mercury drops into the third and being, studying, and the IC
Yeah,
moves to the third too. So now you've got local
communal
community
studying. Uh-huh.
communication right
Which
there
is
with Mercury.
yeah, it's very college. I mean, it's not in the ninth, like you think ninth obviously is the higher learning, but house, but like also the third, I think of like getting together with like classmates for a coffee to
Yeah,
study, go over books
yeah,
and like that type of vibe.
right. Yep.
So yeah, the IC being in the third there totally makes sense. And Mercury being on the IC and the sun, of course, following closely behind because,
It's always
it's
there.
always going to be there with it since there's that conjunction in the birth chart. Um, and yeah, so being that identity, his identity always following him through his academic endeavors and through his his communication, his intellect, Mercury's intellect. So his ego, his identity really is so wrapped up in his intellect that's just ingrained as
Yeah.
kind of who he is. It's not a super close conjunction, But it is like honestly, like for me, I co-presence, it's like there's the reference where like, even if they're in the same house, like if you have two people living in the same house, roommates, that whole reference, like even if
Yep.
they're on two separate rooms of the house, they're aware of each other, that whole thing. So there's just that co-presence there. But, so for me, that's a pretty close one. Um,
Yeah, and with the sun being such, I mean, that's the that's who you are, that's the stronger,
Definitely.
more powerful of them. It's,
Yeah, and it's under the beams too.
mhm.
I've got his relocated chart up right now that I'm looking at, but essentially, like no matter where he is, like and natally, like his like Mercury, his intellect and his communication is blown out by his ego. It's very common to have Mercury under the beams. Like it's not,
Yeah, can
that's
you explain that?
yeah. So it's like so with Kazemi, right? Kazemi gives when you have Mercury conjunct the sun within the same degree, or I think just like a degree apart, it's Kazemi, right? So it's
Yeah.
strengthened. It has like the power of the sun. I think it's an Arabic word, if I'm not mistaken, Kazemi. I don't remember. I think
Yes,
I
it
think
is.
it does
Yeah.
mean in the heart of the sun. Yeah. And so it's powerful when that Mercury's right there in that same degree conjunction with the sun. But then um, when you move it away within, I think it's 14 degrees, it becomes blown out by the sun. It's under the beams. Mercury is never going to be like a certain amount of degrees away from the sun. So it's very common to have Mercury under the beams. It's not something to worry about. Like a lot of us are walking around with our egos like blowing out our communication. Like that's very common.
Yeah, I see that a lot.
So yeah, for sure. What was I gonna say? But yeah, but then when you get past that, I think like 14 or 15 degree, then your Mercury's like kind of like okay again, sort of. But not like, yeah,
Not as heavily
it's not
influenced
like
by that ego. Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Um,
when you've got the sun's natal planet is is Leo, and Leo's right next door with the south node. I mean, you've got that extra energy behind you,
oh, definitely.
making you feel uh, it's like a well-worn path to feel superior to others.
That's so true. Once again, all neutrality here. It's just what the just
Yeah, it's
interpret.
just what the
But
yeah. I hope I didn't hurt anybody's feelings with that. It's just how
but it's
what the
just
chart
what
says.
the
Yeah,
yeah, astrology does indicate that for sure. Yeah, interesting that hey,
and
yeah.
And let's move on from Canada because that seemed to be less than a 10-year stint because
Mhm.
his whole goal was to get into the US, which he did. He got into the
Right.
University of Pennsylvania in 1992. And between then, he graduated after 5 years of being there, 5 or 6. And it was just kind of right after that in 1989, he
Mhm.
created X.com. The next year was PayPal. And in 2002, when SpaceX was founded with the Musk Foundation, he also became a US citizen. Um, but when did he move to California? Where do I have that? Um, Let me double check.
Um, yeah,
So,
and that's a quite a thing. So he's still, even in Pennsylvania, right? He's still on that Mercury IC line. Um, he's still picking up that energy. The IC just moves in between his Mercury and his Sun there. So there's still that energy, but it does shift to the fourth house instead of the third, which is kind of interesting. And then
oh,
Venus goes into the third. So I do wonder if maybe if here he I wonder if in this location he like maybe started dating a little bit more with Venus going into the third house. Um, just I'm not sure how that
yeah. And in
will
1995,
settle
he
around
that's
that.
when he enrolled in a PhD program in applied physics at Stanford. So
Yeah.
that is the era that he was in California.
Okay. And yeah, so okay, so the thing about his astrocartography for California is that it doesn't get much like pretty much spot on than this. Yeah, he's got his Jupiter MC line running right through there.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Yeah, with your MC 10th house, it's just right on the cusp of that 10th house, but that's still your public image. Jupiter
Totally.
is all about expansion, tends to be good luck. It can make you fat, but
That's
too much
true.
of
It's
anything.
true.
But it is almost an exact
It can
conjunction
make you
there.
blow up a little bit. Yeah, it's pretty much spot on.
Wow.
Which is interesting. And then also the North Node going to his ascendant, that nodal line, having that is, I
Yep.
think it's also interesting because then it's like all about like him, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
he stepped into whatever it was that like, I guess, des self-discovery destiny. I feel like that's kind of what tends to happen with people on a nodal ascendant line is there's a whole like, yeah, self-discovery of your life's mission, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of
And
pretty
that was
much,
in 1995, and that's where, Zip was created. And then 99, 4 years later, X and PayPal and Space. I mean, it just after that, it all, I mean, he
yeah.
was there, what, like 1995 to, and just recently, like what, last year, he moved to Texas?
I think when I looked it up, it was December 2021. Yeah, so pretty recently.
Yeah, so
Um,
almost 20 years
uh-huh.
in California. We're looking at that. And anytime you spend that amount of time in a location, you become more your relocated chart. Your natal chart still is what you would use for astrocartography, but
Mhm.
your persona in your life's work or the way that you
Yeah.
focus is going to change. Do you can you pull up any params to see what the quality of time
Yes. Yeah, let's
was?
definitely do that. One more thing I wanted to mention too, it is interesting because even though there's that like peak level career success, when a lot of times when you put Jupiter on the MC, especially for a day chart, that
Mhm.
Jupiter MC line,
Yep.
the interesting thing is that, well, it's in sextile to his Pluto, right? That's like the only
Yep.
aspect really that it makes other than being in a non-sign based opposition to Saturn, it looks like, which is relevant, but it's not by sign, so it's not as relevant. So, and other than that, just that sextile to Pluto. So, furthermore, like when you, it's about how the nature of that planet in your chart, like Jupiter, Pluto in good aspect, that's money. That's big money. That's like, and money that tends to come from, and you can't get more accurate than this, but a lot of times it's like mineral money, like oil money, like like money that comes from some type of like you think of like the archetype of like a black diamond, that type of like
Well,
that's
and you have,
Pluto.
yeah, and Pluto is in the eighth house of other people's money.
Mhm.
And you've got his ascendant with
Yeah,
Aquarius, which is technology. Um,
totally.
and
Yeah,
Uranus is not that far away in the ninth house. And
Oh, it's
because the
not.
ninth
He's
house is
technically on
like,
his Uranus MC line too, or
yeah,
no, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong
Neptune.
Neptune MC. But
Hmm.
Uranus being in the ninth house is fascinating too. You're right, because here's this man from a foreign land, essentially. He's in a foreign. This is a foreign land to him. Like this is new territory, and he's bringing forth all of these Uranian things into this place. The
Hmm.
technology, the technological advancements, all of that. Really, yeah, it's pretty much spot on. Um, what else was I going to say before looking over at the Paran? Oh, it's just interesting that even though he's on that Jupiter MC, which is like peak career level, his Sun and Mercury move into the sixth house, right?
I was just going to say that.
Yes.
Look at that. That's like,
Yeah.
I've come to work.
Work. Yeah, work, work, work. The daily grind in and out, and like sun being in the sixth house can be like wearing and on you. So it's like even though, and this is something, and I've seen this before in people's like in I had a client and she was like, I moved to my Jupiter MC line. My career's doing so good. Why do I feel terrible? She was like, why am I? She's like, everything happened how it was supposed to. Like, my business is like, she was like, I'm awful. And I don't remember if her son was in the sixth or eighth house, but I think it was the sixth. But like an example like this, where it's like, because, yeah, like you can't have everything sometimes in life.
Yeah, no place is
There's
perfect,
no
y'all.
place is perfect. Yes. And also it's like there's sacrifice. Like if you want, like clearly, and this is showing that there was sacrifice that went into that with the sun in the sixth house.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. And then you look at the fifth house with his Venus there in Ceres and Saturn as well, the responsibility of children. This is when he started to have all of his children. His first wife was in vitro, they had triplets, um, and just on and on and on. You can see that that fifth house lit up in that way, that
Interesting.
responsibility towards kids.
Yeah, so that's interesting too because you said it was in vitro, she had triplets, right?
Yep.
So there's that Venus and Gemini with the twins, the archetype of the twins. I know it's triplets, not twins, but like also.
Yeah, and they did 2 rounds, and the second round was triplets as well.
Oh Lord. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
and that
my
was
God.
in 2006. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, and that Saturn and Gemini, Venus and Gemini. Um, I'm curious, was she a little older? Is that why she did in vitro?
I'm not sure. The internet didn't say.
Yeah.
But
Is
when I
Saturn with
saw
Saturn
that
there, that's
he,
why I'm curious. Yeah.
yeah, his first children um, were all within like this, and there was like 6 of them within the same year. And I was like, um, how?
I was,
And,
yeah.
yep, in vitro. So, I mean, I feel like this, in so many ways, he embodies the Uranian and Aquarian principles of community
Mhm.
and technology, because it seems like in every aspect of his life he's utilized it.
Yeah, for sure. No, 100%. And he's close here. He's also close to that Saturn IC line, right? So there's that
Mm-hmm.
becoming the father structure around the home.
Yep.
People become dads on their Saturn IC lines or different Saturn lines. Like that's a thing. Interesting. Paran lines now. Let's look at that. Um, so okay, interesting, because I did take note of this yesterday when I was looking at it, right?
Look
Now
at
that
that.
I can
Uranus
only
on
zoom in
Sun,
so
Uranus
far.
on Venus.
Sun Uranus, Venus Uranus. Like those are
Oh,
the Paran lines. Yeah.
that can be tough, man. I mean, that is a lot of change.
A lot of Uranus, a lot of like, and Sun Uranus though, because but his himself, like he stepped into that, like, where is it? So it's with Uranus on the descendant and the Sun on the IC. Interesting, because that holds relevance to where that crossing comes from. Oh, I wanted to also look at, I messed up everything here. Hold on.
That's okay.
There you
Take your
go.
time.
Um, let's see. There we go. Now it's all back. So yeah, so okay. So one of the things that I found super interesting when I was looking at it, and we don't have to start getting too into it yet, the DC, the stuff going on around DC, but that Paran line, it is just interesting because that Paran line, right? And for those that don't know the Paran line in astrocartography, anybody that studied it, they know it, in depth, they're going to know about Paran lines, but Paran lines happen when two different astrocartography lines cross at a certain latitude, and that particular area is going to be very potent. It's going to extend at that latitude all around the globe and have a small orb of influence just at that latitude, like 75 miles north and south of that area. Um,
And let me just say, I have a wonderful Paran that's just south west of Portugal, and it spans all the way to Carlsbad, California, and I love it. And every time I go to Carlsbad, which is like 9,000 miles away, I love the feeling I get in just this little tiny pocket of the world. And that
it's that
Parans, it can
line.
often make or break a relocated chart,
Oh,
because if you
100%.
yeah, if you can live within that orb of sweetness, if you have a difficult aspect in your relocated chart, it can actually be beneficial to those difficult aspects and make them turn to there's always light and dark to every sign and planet and aspect, and that paran can make that an easier living situation for the good.
For sure. And what I've noticed, I'm not sure, Tia, if you've noticed this too, but it seems to be that they really affect how people feel.
Yes,
Like,
100%. That is
yeah,
exactly, if there was a definition of paran, it's how you're gonna feel.
yeah, for sure. So really, they're so important when considering relocation. If you're on difficult ones too, but it's also like good to know. Also, there's like pros and cons to having that small orb of influence, because if you're on a really bad one, at least you don't have to go that far to get off of it. Just 75 miles north and south. Um, or yeah, north or south of that area, and you're like free of it. And you can feel it. Like if you're like in the location I'm in now, I'm stacked up on like five difficult ones.
Oh,
And
so
I feel it when we get to a certain point away from it. And it's so weird. I've always felt this. And I didn't know until about this location. And I didn't know until I found out about Paran lines that it was like I would get to a certain point like around that, like 75, 100 miles north of here. And I would feel like this massive weight was like off my shoulder. And I couldn't explain it. And I thought it was just because I was like leaving the countryside and going into the city a little bit. But it would happen, like the feeling I would get would be a little earlier than that. But yeah, feelings with Paran lines.
Yeah.
Now, okay. So the Sun Uranus that we were talking about, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
Washington, D.C. That Paran line connects him from San Francisco to
No.
DC. Yes. Like you
It's
can't
the
make it up.
same. I mean,
And
it's like
it's Sun
spot
Uranus.
on.
Yeah.
So he is so familiar with working with this energy, it probably feels like home.
Yes. He's
Damn.
once again, he's bringing in that theme of ego, identity, vitality, and Uranian topics, technology. Yeah. Okay. So his sun squares Uranus very closely. That's a 4-degree square, right? So that Paran line is literally a reflection of where that energy um, can manifest itself along the globe as far as those two planets, a blend of those planets, but also a reflection of that that square in his chart of that aspect being made. You know, sometimes it's a
Yeah,
trine,
so
square,
let's let
opposition.
them
Hmm
let's separate. Like, so there is an aspect in his chart that
hmm
ignites both the energy of the sun and Uranus.
hmm
But a Paran, by definition, is when a star or planet simultaneously occupy angles, 4 angles on a specific location. So if you go back to the map,
The map.
your ACG or your astrocartography line, so say the sun
Hmm
is rolling through the world, Uranus is also rolling through the world, and somewhere on the map, Uranus and the sun touch. And at that point that they touch, they create a lateral energy that wraps like a ribbon or almost like an equatorial energy from that point around the whole world. And
Yes.
so when we're talking about the blend of Uranus and Sun, somewhere on the map, and I'm sure we could dig it and find it, but we're not going to.
Oh no,
Um,
it's right there. That was another thing I was going to say, right? It's right next to Washington, D.C.
oh yeah,
So
because
it's going
here's
to
the
be more
Uranus.
potent.
You see the,
Yeah,
yeah, you
because
see the
his Sun
Uranus
IC line
line.
is there and then the Uranus line is there. So it's going to be po more potent the closer you are to it, right? Yeah.
To the point that it actually those
That it,
two energetic lines touch. It's like a ley line. It's like a personal ley line of
yeah.
energies that we can. Um, and the godfather, if you will, of astrocartography says this about the Sun Uranus line.
Oh,
Um,
good. Yeah, good call. Jim Lewis. Yeah.
Jim
From the
Lewis.
psychology of astrocartography.
Yes,
Yes.
he was the one who found this, and he says the sun with Uranus, and the little quote of it is "Idealists know best. Just ask one." It's like that is the byline of that energy for Elon, and he
Yeah.
clearly feels like he knows best.
Mhm.
Um, so the first paragraph literally says those dull, lackluster moments of boredom we all encounter in life are likely to be quite rare for this native in this location, as change, creativity, and individualism cause everything you experience to take on intense color and provide you with the breathtaking excitement of a roller coaster. And unfortunately, Mr. Musk is taking us all on the ride.
For real. For real. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Sun Uranus, man. So it's that Sun Uranus. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's that and that flavor, like that aspect within his chart is a
God,
big
what
part,
is the distance right there? I mean, it's
so
right it
it's
between
right
DC. Is
there.
that like less than 200 miles?
hmm Yeah, he's very close to it. He's so it's the actual Paran line is right on top of DC. The crossing is,
Just,
it's out a little ways in West Virginia, right?
yep,
But
yep,
it's that's close enough because it radiates around the whole globe at that latitude, right? But even to take it into further context where it's a reflection of
his
an
chart.
aspect within your chart, right? Just the fact alone that his son, right? squares that Uranus. So that's a lot about him and his identity, even like, yeah. Exactly. So that's a very personal aspect to him, you know, because sometimes you can be on a Paran line that's not such a personal as much of a personal aspect, but you know, when there's something, it's something like the sun, the moon, the ascendant ruler.
Yeah, when it's
Um,
yourself,
yeah,
and that's the
especially when it's,
sun,
yes.
you're looking at a very powerful influence.
Yeah. In his whole story, right? In
Hmm.
his natal story. And it's a fascinating thing too, because it just kind of shows, it's a really good example actually of how astrocartography lines up with the actual natal birth chart with his sun square. Because even just in his birth chart alone, sun square Uranus is a huge part of his whole life story.
Well, and I
That's
feel
sun
like
square
the definition of Uranus and how he's expressed that in his life is like the prime example of what Uranus can, the power of what that planet can do. I mean, it's eccentric. He's a
oh,
very
for sure.
eccentric individual,
Yeah.
but it also has to do with like technologies and electricity and if that's not the internet, then I don't know what is.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so interesting that his sun IC line is right is going through DC.
Yeah, I bet
It's
that
like
feels
all
so
of it you can't.
nice.
Oh, we didn't even look at Texas too. He's got so Venus IC is in Texas.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so it's interesting because he's essentially made a home also in Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me before we get let me look at I'm curious to see what Paran line he has through Austin.
Yeah.
I actually didn't I don't think I checked into that when I looked yesterday.
Yeah,
Right.
look at that.
Yeah, Neptune nodal, which is kind of interesting because yeah, we have Venus, but Venus
Mhm.
IC is the main thing, right? He's
Venus,
like
yeah.
all of a sudden it's become this like love affair, right? With Texas as feeling like a home for him. Like he completely made his business home there.
Yep.
He's like he established Jupiter MC established the corporation there in California and then moved it to where he started to feel like this like more sense of like love and home and like it seemed like when everything started happening and everyone started going out to Texas, it was like a big like yeah, I don't know how else to describe it, but like one big love affair for
Yeah,
some
everybody in Cali went there and he
totally.
was
Yeah.
drawn and he went. And here's the thing, in his natal chart, you've got Neptune in Sagittarius in the sixth house, you know. So Neptune is always going to be tied to his work. And then he's got those Paran lines of Neptune, North Node and South Node running like right there over Austin. And you think, and
Uh-huh.
he's moved his home life there and his work there. And you
Mhm.
think like there is an expression of his natal chart.
For sure. It does also make me wonder how much he self-medicates there.
Oh, yeah, with that. Oh,
The both
yeah,
of the,
the fifth
you know,
house. Ugh.
like maybe that's where he goes probably to have a good time too, because look at his chart. Of course he feels nice there. Look at this relocated chart for Austin.
Hmm. Oh, and
It's like,
Saturn in the fourth house, it could, he's already built up that Saturn money behind him, establishing something there. He'll
right?
probably never leave. That's like long-term,
Yeah.
stable
Yep.
situation.
Venus right on the IC there, and then his Sun and Mercury in the fifth house. That's probably where he goes to have a good time.
You know,
Also,
when you say that,
mhm.
it reminds me of a video I saw of him on top of his new building in Texas. And he's like, I think it was in Texas. He's
Uh-huh.
drinking,
That's so funny.
whiskey,
I
smoking a
have not seen
cigar, and
that.
having a
Yeah.
bonfire on the roof.
Yeah, that's Elon Musk in Texas. That's what this relocated chart literally indicates there. Yeah, Sun, Mercury in the fifth. So the fifth house, that's the house of like fun, entertainment. That's the party house. The fifth house is the party house. That's to
Yep.
have a good time house, for sure. And the new ascendant, like based on, we're using traditional rulership, right? His
Hmm.
ascendant there being in Pisces puts that Jupiter in Scorpio in the ninth house, as his ascendant ruler. Like that's a good time. Like that's fun,
Yeah.
that Jupiter abundance, exuberance, extravagance, and then that ninth house where it's like this is still a foreign land for him. This is still a different place,
Yep.
and he's coming through in there with that. Yeah. Totally, totally interesting. Also though,
Yeah. Well, look at that 12th house too with the North Node and Mars in there. I bet it's a really good place to get away and not have to think about
and
things.
not thinking about the stuff that he's got going on.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if he's just gonna it's gonna get so too much that he's just gonna like um run back to Texas and give up entirely, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, with that Mars in the 12th house, that's the hidden enemies. You got your warriors and hidden enemies.
Mhm.
Like he may
Yeah,
have to, but they may be residing in Texas as well. That could be
definitely.
detrimental in the long run.
Definitely.
You never know how these things play out.
For sure. Are you ready to jump into the Sibley chart
Let's do it. This
again?
I've been waiting for this.
All right. This is crazy. This is wild. Let's put this synastry up here. There are so many things. Um, I was like, is this guy? I'm almost wondering now too if he feels that this sense of this like emboldened, this like feeling when you look at the Sibley chart against his chart and you look at his nodes here. I'll hold off. I'll just let me go ahead and put it in and then
Yeah,
and calculate. Are you ready? Let's set
I
it.
am ready.
So anyway, you look at this. Sorry, let me eat these crackers. Let me finish this
That's
cracker.
okay. I'm just gonna let my jaw drop on the ground.
Hmm. Have you looked at this yet?
Whoa. Mm-mm. Look at those, the north node and the south node. That is faded.
Yes.
I mean, no wonder he was drawn. No wonder he was
Yes.
drawn for here. I mean, he's had a love affair with America since he was a kid, probably.
However you want to look at it, I like wrote like so in my notes, I like wrote down, I took notes of like some of the most relevant synastry, and it's like there's not like one single part of this chart that of either charts that don't connect in one way. I mean, look, even the Chiron is the
The
same.
Chiron,
Even even down to Chiron, like they have the same Chiron placement, which they're in that Chiron return right now, right? Um, yeah,
not looking good.
yeah, a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
This whole
That,
stellium, the United States has this Cancer stellium, right? That whole stellium. So, like, the United States Jupiter is on his sun at 5 degrees, 5 degrees, right? 5, 5, exact. Um, so United States Sun is on his ascendant at 13, 13.
oh my gosh. Yeah, and his
So
Mercury is just like 10 degrees off the US.
yes.
Whoa.
His Mercury is just like is close right there. And yeah, it's close. It's only 10 degrees. It's the same sign, it's so wild. It's wild. And if you look at it, it's like so much, this pileup is so much that then you forget other things where it's like, oh, also the United States Venus is on his sun. Because it's 3 degrees, 5 degrees. Like that's still that conjunction. Like,
Yep.
so there's that whole
The
like
US is loving on him.
totally. And you called it like right off the bat with the node too. The nodes like really struck out at me also, where I was like, there's something that he feels destined. There's like a destined thing where like then like if you want to like go let your imagination run wild and go there, you could even speculate that this guy is like if you're really crazy, like this guy is like a reincarnated founding father.
Right. I was like, he's George
Right, right.
Washington.
Yeah, yeah. For
Like
sure.
reincarnated, one of the,
One of those guys that were in
yeah,
there in that office doing something.
100%.
Yeah, maybe he was what's the guy with the large signature, right? Hancock, right? Because they said give it your
Oh,
name.
yeah, John Hancock.
John
Yeah, because it's in the second
Hancock,
house. And um,
because he
yeah,
put that really large signature, like a really
yep,
small
that'd be
signature on
Leo.
the big one. So he's like, I'm
Oh
back now.
my,
I'm really gonna
yeah.
make an appearance.
Oh,
Like,
that is,
yeah.
this is
Oh,
wild, girl.
bro. There's a mathematics to the universe. There's a code to everything. And it's crazy when you look at this. Like you can't 5 degrees to on 5 degrees, like 13, 13 ascendant. Well, and also that being said, though, the ascendant we're not 100% sure of, right? It's somewhere around that time, 7:30. For the longest time, we didn't have a birth time for Elon. And then I'm only speculative because it's 7:30 a.m. And when it's cut clean like that, I wonder. But still, it's not going to shift that much. It's
Yeah, well, those
probably
degrees
pretty
are,
close
it's
to
going to be
around.
conjunct even if you're off by a couple of minutes and everything
Exactly.
that we've blocked.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Totally. So it's like, yeah. Um, it's insane.
that is insane.
my notes here. The other thing that I think is really crazy, right, is the United States moon is on his vertex,
Yep.
7 degrees, and his Mars, right?
Yeah.
Close to it. The moon in a nation's chart represents the people. So it is interesting that there's all of this hunky-dory stuff, and then we have like the people of the country being like right up on his malefic, like maybe not so happy about things. Like things are not
Yeah,
going.
where's perfect? Yeah, we're not a fan at this stage.
Yeah,
Um, but I
the
don't
nation.
think he
Yeah.
cares. He's got,
No, no.
I mean, he
But
feels
it's
too good
fascinating.
here. Well, I mean, why would you? There's too much
Yeah.
behind him. He's made all of his success here. All of his children are here. He's a US citizen now.
Hmm.
He's
Um,
probably as close to the highest office politically as he could legally get,
yeah,
like it,
right.
not voted for, clearly,
Mhm.
not through due process of any sort, but
Mhm.
for the US. That's an interesting idea because it's the US corporation, right? If we were to look at this more of a business than a country,
Right.
uh, we would look at that nodal strength in the second house and the eighth house. He's
Mhm.
got the ascendant of the US on his sixth house of work. Um, like, yeah, I mean, this has
That is
more to
interesting
do with
too.
money,
Uh-huh. Definitely.
you know.
Hmm.
And with that Chiron sitting right over his Chiron in the 10th house, like his image is going to struggle.
Totally.
But it doesn't matter. He doesn't
No,
need to win the popularity contest because he's already got the money.
yeah, I don't think he's going to let up. Another thing that I find interesting is that the United States has that Mars-Uranus conjunction and baked into its chart, Gemini. Mars-Uranus conjunction is fairly volatile.
Mhm.
It's a lot of like the reason why, there's I forgot I haven't been using my mic. Oh well. Um, so yeah, the Mars-Uranus conjunction, it's a lot of the reason why there's an issue with, gun violence in this country and then war, um, you know, here, there, everywhere over the course of our history. And it falls in his 12th house, right? So it does make you wonder there. And his Uranus is right up on the United States, or the United States Uranus, which we're about to go into that Uranus return, which is going to be in his 12th house, is right up on his Saturn in the 12th. I do wonder if there is some type of conflict, how invested he's going to be
Yeah, I
behind.
mean, you look at that and these unexpected warlike energy going through his 12th house of enemies, will
Mhm.
we see it or will he not be aware of it?
Right.
12th house can also be mental illness. Um, how will that play out publicly?
Yes, that's true. Um, there are a few things. Another thing I forgot to mention with the maps, is that his Mars descendant line actually runs through Ukraine and Eastern Europe and some parts of Russia, I think, which
Let's take a
made,
look at that. Let's actually
yeah,
physically look at that because that's a big deal.
yes, it made me wonder. It did make me wonder. I was like, how involved is he in this conflict already? And how involved might he become, right? Once again,
Hmm.
with that Mars-Uranus conjunction in his 12th house, how much is he involved that we're not aware of even
Yeah, because
currently,
this 12th house stuff is all
because
the
it's,
hidden things.
yes. So literally Mars running right through Kiev.
Yeah.
It's not running through Russia, but it's with an orb of Russia.
So for people who are just getting into astrocartography, Mars descendant lines, your descendant tends to run through your seventh house. Seventh house is one-on-one relationships. Mars tends to bring war. If it ignites your 12th house or plays around in those areas, it could also create mental anxiety. Um, it's not a pleasant energy. It's probably,
Conflict in general. Yeah.
yeah,
And when you have it on the descendant line, uh it's you're dealing with like it's against other people. That's an open enemy, right?
Yep.
As opposed to a hidden one in the 12th house, according to the ancients. But Harry, was it Harry S. Truman that dropped the bomb, right? His Mars
Yes.
descendant line
Went
actually
right through
ran
Hiroshima.
over.
Yeah.
So that being said, when you see something like this, you're like, it just makes you wonder. And then
Well, and
please,
like if you're just a regular person and you go to a Mars descendant line, depending on the configuration of your Mars and how you handle that kind of energy, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. But now we're talking
no, no,
about somebody who has this global influence, and so when
totally.
they are involved with a country who is also globally influenced, you have to their chart takes on a much more broader meaning. Like not everybody's chart's going to interact with the world that way. But if
Right,
you've
right. It
already,
doesn't mean like if you go to your Mars descendant line, you're going to be caught up in a war. Like that's not the
right,
case. Yeah.
no, people might
Um,
not be nice to you, but whatever.
right. Or like you might get fit. You might get a really good personal trainer and get in shape. Like there's all
Yeah.
kinds of
If you're
different
into
ways that,
like
yeah.
extreme sports, that's a fantastic place to go. If you are into weapons manufacturing, that is also a
Uh-huh.
fantastic place to do business because those are like any of the war type
Hmm.
things, any of the Mars themes in general will benefit your one-on-one relationships,
For
and
sure.
that can be business. So,
Mhm.
marriages don't do well under those kind of lines, but then it
No,
depends. Maybe you're married to an Aries and it's just hot and heavy. Who
totally.
knows?
Yeah, it depends on what. Yeah, if you need to like, if you need like to spice it up, if you need action and drive, like if you're too bored, it could work, right? So isn't there something going on in Yemen right now?
Yep. Yeah. Didn't they just what did they do
Um,
in Yemen?
I don't know. I just saw something about it. But it's interesting because that same Mars descendant
Yeah.
line run.
We may honestly be ready to we're really close to bombing Yemen. US airstrikes targeting Yemen's Houthi rebels kills one. Okay, so that was a day just occurred. Um,
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of, listen, how involved is he? Um, listen, the man invents technology. The man is, the technology. There, his sun and Mercury are hidden in the 12th. But anyways, not to get too sidetracked onto that, 'cause,
yeah.
uh,
Yeah, it does
you do,
suggest
yeah.
that Doge is probably the least of what we are being shown in his involvement in world activities with the US.
Yes. I
Yeah.
think there is a technological like military, because I mean the military and technology, they kind of tend to go hand in hand, right?
Yep.
Oops.
I mean, I grew up in Colorado and we have all of those, companies
Uh-huh.
here. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
government contracts, they bring in a lot of money. And he's the one in charge of cutting any programs to levy up more funding for war, essentially, is what
Mhm.
is pretty clear of what they're doing with that money. And who is that money going to?
Right.
So,
Yeah. So those are the things that when you see, the astrology, it makes you wonder.
yep.
Um, yeah, of it because yeah. Ooh, okay. It is interesting. There's the whole idea of I've heard the term recently, shadow president, um, the potential of that being, a possibility, all things considered.
Well, I mean, when
Um,
have we ever seen, particularly in the early stages of a presidency, once they've gotten elected, to have somebody come in that was not a non-elected official
mhm.
with their son and stand in there and do press briefings
Yeah,
and the president not say anything?
yeah.
It's almost so in your face.
I'm going to put the US Sibley now on the other side because it is interesting to
Okay.
get like, because then you get like a multi perspective, right?
Yeah.
Of like where things fall. It's, get from both sides of the coin, kind of in a
Yeah.
way.
And I
and
think I want
see.
to look at like transits and then zodiacal releasing if we could get into that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
let's definitely check that out. But it's just it's really wild when I knew there was some synastry based on like what I had remembered the United States chart being and what I had looked at his chart being, but I did not realize that um the numbers were going to be that like the degrees were going to line up like that closely. Um
yeah, that's wild. When you shared his information, you got it from, I think it was like astro something.com.
yeah,
They
one of the main ones.
they rated the accuracy as excellent.
Yeah.
So I don't know where they
It
got that
probably
information, but I would
right.
concur.
It probably came from a hospital. You know, anytime there's a prominent figure that big, like the hospital, you know, they're likely gonna like give up the information.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, I don't know what Pretoria is like, in
It's South
particular. Like,
Africa. Anything can be paid for, bought and paid for.
true. Yeah. I guess I just meant in the context of like, but I think he was well off enough. I don't think he was born
Oh,
in
yeah, I think
home.
he was, yeah,
Yeah.
I think he was very well off.
Yeah. Okay. So just a different perspective here,
Hmm.
um, which puts the United States. Then when you look at it from this angle, right, you see that US stellium in the eighth house, in his
Yeah.
eighth house, right?
Other
Or
people's
wait,
money.
how does this work? No, because the US stellium itself, I'm sorry, is
Yeah,
in the eighth house. So that puts like
yeah.
his sun and Mercury in the eighth house of the United States, other people's money. Right.
What is
We
he doing? What is he himself on his ascendant and his sun and his Mercury going through and doing with the United States money right now?
I really don't know. Like, right? Like we
I
don't know.
mean, Doge is the one that has been
What is
responsible for cutting all of the programs.
yeah. Well,
Cancer
yes. Well,
is
yeah.
the moon. The moon is the people. The
Hmm.
eighth house is other people's money, but it's the endings and death of things. We just had Mars retrograde. And if you watched the marathon that Chris Brennan put out, and just even a fraction of it,
Oh, I
we
did
went
not have
through
time.
history of Mars retrogrades and
The babies,
Cancer.
I did
It
not
was
have time.
always like public programs were
Huh.
pulled back, receded, or cut out. And when
Right.
you look at Elon
Interesting.
Musk's like
Huh.
chart over that, who's in charge of these cuts?
He is, yeah. And that Mars is retrograding right over his ascendant and right there in that the eighth house of the United States. Yeah, that's interesting. Um, but look, there's his Venus on the descendant of the US. So there's that love affair, but
Mm-hmm.
also on
Yeah.
the United States Mars, right? It's interesting because when you look at it from the other angle, the Mars Uranus conjunction, which is on the descendant for the US, right? Which is why it's another reason it's so volatile because it's right there on the descendant dealing with others, open enemies. You know, for him, it falls in his 12th house of secret, that hidden house. And then
Yeah.
when you put it this way, his Venus and Saturn, which in his chart are hidden, here they're on they're right open enemy in the seventh house, descendant, other people. Um, yeah, so like it's crazy. Like you could probably sit here and analyze this whole thing. Another like for and still find things. Another thing I noticed that was kind of interesting was how his Uranus is on the US Saturn and the
Shaking things up. Saturn
US
is usually
Saturn
like the
it
basis. It's the long-term stability of anything.
Mhm. And the US Uranus is on his Saturn or his Saturn is on US Uranus, however you want
You
to look
just
at it.
can't
So
make
there's
this
this
up.
no, you can't. There's this thing where he's like, there's this attempt to bring structure into some kind of perceived chaos here, right? With Uranus be there, like coming in to put order that he's thinking he's providing and putting order that he says he's doing. And then yeah, and then like you said over here with that chaos on the stability and
No, but
structure.
what is he really
Also,
doing for the people? The 11th house of people. He's using technology to
techno yep,
tear down the stability of that inner will, which is the US. Like
totally.
that's like, I mean, we're looking at school programs, Department of Education, veterans assistance, like, everything that structured us together wholly as a community in this
Mhm.
nation is now
Yeah.
being dismantled.
Yeah. Also, yeah, it's also on the Midhaven.
Mm-hmm.
It's close to the Midhaven. And yeah, the dismantling of structures, restructuring, it's just wild. When I saw this, like I already knew there was like a little bit, but I did not think it was this like
Literal.
literal. And here's the thing though, with this vertex over here, right?
Just
It
yeah,
makes
looking
me
at that.
wonder. It
Yeah.
makes me wonder because that vertex point is triggered like by transits, and it makes me wonder what transit through Aquarius, Pluto and Aquarius probably, when it touches that point, that degree point is going to trigger something crazy for him.
Okay, so that's 23, and we've got Pluto. How long is Pluto's cycle again?
That'll be a while, I
That's
think.
like,
Yeah, that's going to be a while. Um, and who knows? It might not even at that
yeah,
point,
we
like
might not even be,
who knows
we're in for the
that
long
point.
haul. Those Pluto cycles are incredibly
Yeah.
long. It's 248 years to do a full cycle, so we do
I
like
think it's around
248
20 years.
divided by
I know it's not
12. That's 20
I,
years. In
yeah.
20 years,
Mhm.
20.667, whatever years, it'll get close to that 23 degree.
Mhm.
Um, and that will be the end of it. But yeah, how that's going to, you know,
Yeah, that will
we
be
could be in the
closer towards the end, but it'll
70s.
still have some time because it's got to get that full 29 degrees, right?
Yeah,
But I just wonder, I wonder what's gonna,
like this is just the beginning,
yeah, no,
you
it's crazy,
know,
right? It's really crazy. Um,
and 20 years from now
mhm.
is like gonna be 43. And I kid you not, he comes into a major peak period in 2042, right as that occurs. In
Yeah,
level one, too,
interesting,
and Zodiacal
right?
releasing.
Interesting. Something's going down, that's for sure. And
Buckle
I
up,
wonder,
Buttercup.
buckle up for sure. But I wonder with that Mars, because it's Mars in Aquarius and that North Node in his natal chart is in the eighth house. And the eighth house is still, even though we're dealing with like other people's money and passive income and investments and all of those things, which I'm sure play a role, the eighth house is still a house, a not easy house. It's still a house of loss. It still can indicate like not so good things happening to a person. So, I mean,
Yeah,
we'll
what do we have for like transits?
yeah, that's so far ahead in the future. I don't honestly, who knows what if even by that point what will even be
Yeah,
of
but it is something to consider his relationship overall with the eighth house
this.
and America, because that, yeah, the eighth house is not an easy house.
Right,
Um,
right. Hold on,
and any of these events could, mostly with the mind and the sun and the ascendant there, that could, in my opinion, be more of an ego hit. And
mhm.
like his mind, something about,
Yeah, that could be.
you know,
Right,
um,
right.
I don't know, maybe he'll get a neural link and it'll go haywire. Who knows?
I mean, yeah, and that brings me to I wonder, I don't know. I just wonder how much he'll start infiltrating I mean, my Uranus return predictions have been like I've been wondering on and off a little bit if he's just going to unleash the robots on this country. Like, and then if that's what the Uranus return maybe is going to have to do with a little bit. And then I saw somebody was freaking out. There was this, I don't know if you saw the photo shoot that Kim Kardashian did with that robot, how disturbing that was.
All right, I'm gonna pull that up.
Yeah. So
Um,
now we're getting like quite a bit off topic,
I
of
know,
course,
but it
but I feel like it's
they
possibly
I
relevant.
do believe that there is like this aspect of uh they photo shoot. There's predictive programming,
Right.
and the Kardashians have been used for that for quite some time. Um,
Oh, definitely.
that is a bit disturbing.
Yes, very disturbing. And I saw something with that like a while back where she was just like posing with the robot, like, look at my like robot slave. It does everything for me. It's if she doesn't already have like, you know, she has already servants, I'm sure.
Well, if you
So
wanted
then,
to try to serve up the world in which you're trying to create, how would you market it? What avenues and people would you utilize to bring it about? Um,
no, it's a great marketing standpoint too, because it's like, oh, you want to like not do the dishes so that you can like live more luxuriously. Here's this robot to do everything for you so that you can like just live like these people lavishly live. They have servants. Here, you get your very own servant, but you don't have to feel bad about it being
oh,
a
very
real.
South African of him.
Oh Lord. Yeah.
Sorry, you could edit that one out.
No, it's fine. It's just what. Yeah, I want just these are the questions, these are the things that it makes me wonder. And then when I see the astrology too, I wonder even more, right? So maybe that's like a good starting point to jump into the transits, right?
Yeah, we could do transits and
Yeah,
then
and
let's
ZR.
build on that so people can understand zodiacal releasing because he's about to hit a peak period next month, um, in a second level zodiacal releasing period, and it's something that we often see in like vice presidents. And so even though he's having this like not so great image, and they are rebelling in many places against his Tesla vehicles. This peak period suggests a much more prominent role about to hit next month.
Yeah. Um, Definitely with the ZR. And then also, I think, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. So right now we can all agree that it's not an easy time for him. Like it's not looking good, right? He's got Mars on the ascendant. It was like probably, I mean, it's been there, right? Um, Now I wonder
Now we're going, yeah,
what's
now
gonna
we're moving forward in time.
Yeah, moving forward, I am very curious. First of all, I'm curious about what's going to happen when the moon meets up with Mars here 2025, close to his Mercury. Because the
Okay, so
moon
April 15th is the day his
April.
zodiacal releasing, and a lot of spirit shows a peak
Okay.
period in Virgo.
Yeah, April 5th, I wonder, April 15th. So it's close. It's close because the moon tends to trigger events, right?
Yeah,
When it comes up and touches. So I do wonder like what might around that day transpire with him that's not going to be so good for him.
yeah.
However, as soon as Mars leaves Cancer, not as soon as Mars leaves Cancer, because then Mars is going to go into Leo in his second house, right?
5 days
Um,
after that moment.
yes,
Oh,
but
like we need more energy in that house.
right for real, for real. But I'm very curious about because just as he gets out of that really difficult Mars transit on his ascendant, he's going to have the exact opposite transit come through on his ascendant, which everyone whatever house you Mars has been going through Cancer in, they're going to experience that in that house of their life, right? Like especially for a day chart where it's going to be like a really difficult transit that's been going through that house. It's going to come in as soon as Jupiter goes into Cancer, and it's going to be like, you're going to be like, wow, like it's going to get better.
Yeah, you're like, oh,
And
it's
like,
been such a drag. It's been so hard. Why is this so difficult? And then,
yes. And
yeah,
then bam, you're gonna have the exact opposite, which like doesn't always happen with transits, right?
mm-mm,
Like where it goes from like really bad to really good.
yeah,
Uh, which, maybe shows how like bad transits are not always bad. They're lessons for growth and they help you see perspective and try and put, maybe force you to do other things that are necessary. So then it makes way for that good
yeah.
transit.
I mean,
That's
if we're growing and learning, that would
yeah.
definitely be the case. I certainly hope, you know, it
So
is.
anyways,
Yeah.
yeah, I think so then Jupiter's gonna swoop in.
Jupiter. Oh, and look at that Mercury coming through. His mind is about to just pop off.
Haywire, right?
Yes.
I didn't even think about that Mercury being there. That is a very valid point because I think personally, what I think is going to happen is that he's going to start like he's going to Oprah it. And he's already been doing that, right? Like you get a car, you get a car, like you get like,
Everybody gets a
he's gonna
humpback. Well,
I think yeah, like I really think that's what this is going to be about because I'm like, this man has stirred up so much animosity in the hearts of the people. He is going to have to give them stuff. He's gonna have to give, because the only thing you can really think of that can change people's minds like that, or make them like, if you start giving them money, if you start giving them, you say, oh, you want to like get rid of your Tesla? Are you sure? What about a free one?
Yeah.
Or like you can even take it to the dark side of that, the possible, because this transit's like a year long, right? So like let's say like and this is like out there of, but who knows? Like, do you want $100,000? Do you want $500,000? Get this Neuralink. That's what I.
Yeah, that could be it. Neuralink or schools. He could want to take over education with Mercury there. Now
Mhm.
that they're dismantling the Department of Education, that's
Oh,
what's
that's
really going to
true.
get the parents involved, like,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
That's true. That's a good point. And Jupiter's a teacher type of,
Ninth house,
yeah.
education, knowledge. I mean, he
Yeah,
could be
Jupiter
like, I mean,
rules.
Trump is sitting there going, he doesn't have a plan, but he does say, like, we need something better. And maybe, Musk will be allowed to come in and say, this is what we're doing. And
I
then it's going
think,
to be funded by Tesla.
you know what? I bet you're right too, because what are they going to do? Probably they're going to want to teach children technology. They're going to want to teach them the ways of the future in that way.
Well, they're
Um,
gonna they're gonna need somebody to they need their minions to work. It was never about truly educating people. It was always about bringing them up to a level
Absolutely.
of understanding so that they could create
Be in the
work,
workforce.
and I think that's what's going to happen.
I
Um,
think so. I think you're
and for
probably
so
right.
many people when you've got kids, it's such a unfortunate situation. The public schools were a really good refuge for many kids to get a shoe in while their parents kept them
Mhm.
afloat with room and board. But you offer this. I don't. Where does that Mars fall? Because now I'm starting to get the vibe of like, well, they're going to teach this next generation, technology, but to what end? And I just keep thinking like
Mhm.
war for war,
Technological
games,
warfare. Yeah.
drones,
Yeah.
robots. I
No,
don't
for
know. I don't
sure.
know why that's coming
I
up
think
right now.
No, I think that's valid that that's coming up too, because I've seen some stuff recently where it's like when it comes to like drones and stuff, technologically, like, and certain technological like cyber warfare, supposedly we're like leaps and bounds behind China. Um,
Yeah, well, that's not surprising.
yeah, of course not. And so it does really, when you think about it from that angle, it would make sense then that they would try to come in and teach the youth in this country as much about like, steering them towards technology, kind of just like
And
creating, yeah, dismantling the education Department of Education in order to create a new like, um, yeah, something more technologically oriented, or yeah, I don't know, something
yeah,
more,
and look at that
a new
11th
process.
house. At this during this transit, June 10th, you've got Venus in the earthy sign of Taurus,
Mhm. In his
and
11th.
Uranus there on its almost anaretic degree. Um,
But
Taurus
they're going to meet up for a conjunction.
yeah.
They're going to meet up for a conjunction. I
I
wonder
mean,
what
that could be,
sudden change of course and loving this guy, right?
yep,
What does he
yeah,
do that, like, it's so hard for me to wrap, it's so hard to wrap your mind around it right now though, right? Because it's like people hate him so much, but then you're looking at the transits for just a couple months out, and it's like
yeah.
it looks like that public discord,
Oh, look at
disdain
that MC. Yeah,
is
it's
gonna
going to
change.
change. I
Yeah.
mean, his longevity in the sphere, at least with the zodiacal releasing, it looks like he's going to have all of Pluto and Aquarius under his thumb.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
think so. I think so.
And this is where it turns around. Yeah, he didn't have a good start to it. Maybe he's learned his lesson, and then come summer, it'll switch and change. And public opinion will be different. Because you're right. It sounds like he's going to, you're right. He's probably going to come in and he's going to give the people something to ease.
I think so. Because that Venus Uranus conjunction
The
in the
11th.
11th house, right? It's just so interesting because that almost just shows it's like sudden love for him, like sudden from the people, from like groups of people out of nowhere. Like, where is that coming from?
Well,
And
and
then
in Taurus,
Jupiter on the
that's the
ascendant.
physical stuff. It's like,
Yeah, that's
it's
true.
security. is what
Definitely.
that is. Venus, like it exalted in Venus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they love beautiful things, aesthetically pleasing, and security.
Totally.
So
And
yeah,
right at that same time that that conjunction occurs,
Jupiter is exact on his
5 degrees,
sun.
which is the same as is in the United States Sibley chart, that Jupiter at 5 degrees. So I don't know what we're in for, but like it's gonna be interesting. And the
Yes.
sun being at 12 right there, right before 13. Yeah, right there,
And
it'll
I
be 13. The next day it'll be 13. And
April
then
15th, it all pops off. Something's going to switch for him. And from there, he's going to rise. That
uh-huh.
zodiacal releasing period lasts, honestly, for a full year until December 6th, 2026.
So you think it, let me pull up, I'm gonna pull up his ZR. We can look at that a little
Yeah.
bit.
And
Because
then, and then on June 15th, 2042, he enters, a Virgo, um, zodiacal releasing level 1. So
right.
now we're looking at, and this is all first house. It's not like 10th house. It's not like
Uh-huh.
Gemini. Um, but yeah, yeah,
Let's see
right
here. This is
there,
a lot of spirit.
right here.
I wonder what's going to happen in 2026, September 24th. I mean, it's a loosening of the bond on a level 3, so it might not be um
Yeah,
super.
sometimes those can be, yeah, they can be more
There could be a
personal,
bit.
but we're looking at a
Yeah.
loosening of the bond right here in Virgo, right? Isn't that what that plus sign is? Peak period.
Oh, that's
Okay.
the peak. Yeah,
Yeah.
peak
Oh, I
period.
see what you're
Yeah.
saying. Okay, I'm not used to
Oh, I
that.
see. Oh my gosh. Yeah, on a level 2.
Yeah, peak period.
That's
I'm
yeah, yeah,
telling you
you were
that
saying that.
turnaround,
Sorry.
that public turnaround, I bet you anything that's next
Yeah,
month.
I think so too. And
And it's
his
good that it happens so quickly, right? Like you'd want, it's just been like Mars and Venus in retrograde, just like, not so great over his ascendant and all of that. And now all of a sudden he's gonna get the, I mean, we all are, whatever that, lifting of that heavy energy,
like
it's all coming
Jupiter
for us as
was.
well. It's just going to get easier and easier and better, and things that we've been working towards are going to get nicer
Mhm.
for us by June. But yeah, like
Yeah,
for him, that's level 2. That's pretty big. And then
that is pretty big.
when the 2042, in level 1, Virgo, that
Wow.
touches on the part of fortune, an angular house, his first house.
Wow. So he's only but moving up. Like if people
Yeah,
think he wants that's his thing. Like if sorry if you want him out of the picture, it doesn't look like he's going anywhere.
it doesn't. I
Not
mean, we never
anytime
know. We
soon.
can't tell the future, but
That's
should
true
he
because the
track
peak
in,
period for him, because who knows this peak? Yeah, we can't tell the future. And who knows, because the peak doesn't have to be that it's good. It could be that like he fall, like if you take a fall, like that could be, but I wouldn't necessarily say that because with part of fortune and Virgo,
yeah,
they're pretty neutral times for him. It doesn't look like, right? Because depending on
hmm,
where that malefic is or benefic, like his malefic and benefic are in the fixed signs, right?
yes,
And then he's got Venus in and Saturn. So it looks like they're like moderately, they kind of cancel each other out there. So it seems like he probably
yeah.
has like,
It's like
you know,
almost protective. Yeah.
yeah,
If
moderate
anything, neutral.
neutral time. So
So, yeah. And given what
not
we've
good or bad.
seen, we're building up to this. It looks like it, and peak periods can also be moments of stability at higher positions. And as
Mhm.
soon as that peak period ends, um, those they can be drawn back. The concern I have with his zodiacal releasing is that in 20 years he gets it in level 1. So if what we're seeing now, um, is just a level 2, which would be considered in some place, like when Chris Brennan mentions it in his book, it's often like Al Gore had it in level 2, but George Bush had it in level 1. But these were also like in the 10th house. It's like the 10th house is the most powerful angular, for these times, and then the first house, and then the seventh, and then the fourth is usually the weakest. But the first house, in considering that he's got such a interesting dynamic with, the U.S. Sibley chart in that first house, I would say he's going to be a part of the U.S. system. Uh,
So
we're not gonna get rid of his name for a
no,
while.
no. And I am curious though, did you look at it? Oh, I can pull it up right now, actually. His annual perfections along with
Oh
it.
yeah, that is a good. So we
Especially to give us like a little bit more clarity on how next year could be for him.
so
Because all right, June 28th,
June 20,
2024.
25.
So from to 2025, okay, so he's in a Jupiter period, which is interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, then he's going to go into Capricorn. So that's going to be Saturn ruled. So he's going to be more sensitive to the transits of Saturn, right? So I'm wondering
Yeah.
if maybe it's not going to be as good as we're thinking because Saturn's going to be in Aries where it's not so comfortable on his midhaven, where it is technically a malefic, whether or not it's his malefic. And it's going to be up against on his Chiron too. So on
Mm-hmm.
second thought, I'm wondering, like, it looks like things might be getting good, but not from everybody. Like, not everybody's gonna buy it. Let's be real. Not
Right.
everybody's gonna, even if
Yeah,
he does
that
give
foundation
people
is
money,
going to be very
right?
difficult. The wounded healer is one that can heal it for others, but not themselves. And if you're the person that's bringing it to you, I mean, I don't see many, and maybe there will be some benefits that come out of the technology, but whether or not they benefit Elon himself is questionable.
Right. Right. So yeah, there is also kind of a mixed bag there. But he is going to be in it. Yeah. But I think the positives here definitely maybe outweigh but it's just like with it, like, we're always going through a good. Anybody and everybody, your malefics are always somewhere in the chart and your benefics are
Yep.
always somewhere in the chart. So
Yeah.
you're always going through a difficult there's always going to be an area of life that's difficult for you at any given time and an area of life that's more helpful and beneficial to you at any given time. So,
Yeah, the
that's
beginning of that transit, with that Saturn going over his 10th house, that could be some difficulty in establishing any kind of long-term basis.
for sure.
Um,
For sure.
but with
So,
that may be difficult for him
mhm.
personally in his business life. And Saturn's kind of like the wet blanket. It's cold and it's wet and it's like the school marm. But that first with the Jupiter over there, it could probably seem like he's lucky. Maybe
Yeah.
appearances.
Uh-huh.
Um,
The seventh, yeah, it is. He's going to be in a seventh house year. I mean, and that's open enemies, though.
yeah.
So there's a mixed bag. Yeah, he may just I don't know. I think he's gonna try and do whatever he can to buy people's love because he's realizing people right now they don't really like him. It's
Yeah,
like
maybe you should start with his children.
that would be nice, right?
Take care of the babies.
Maybe just be a dad, dude. Just go home and
Yeah,
be a dad. It's
right?
not that bad. It's fun. Just like let go of all of it. Just let it all go and go home and play with your kids.
Right?
I'm telling
Stop
you, it's
using
so
them as a
much more
human
fun.
shield and yeah, go play.
Detach. Detach
Yeah.
from your feeling of obligation to everything. It's a South Node in Leo. You're not the king anymore.
Yeah, let it
You're the
go.
king in the past life. Maybe you were one of the founding fathers. Is this? I'm telling you, it's like.
I just see like so many people running
uh,
to their chart being like, am I egocentric? Do I have that? You know?
no, it's like, yeah, it's like it doesn't mean you're no, that's not what
No,
it
no,
means.
no. We all
It just
play it out differently. That's
yeah,
why you get a reading from a professional astrologer because there's so many angles and mixed bags and timing of things. You know, we can't. We're
totally.
not predicting the future. We're just saying like, look out for these energies because it could be. He's going to be
Yeah,
present in the public eye for quite some time.
yes, for sure. And the
Um,
thing, yeah, the way I like to look at it too is like it's not predicted like the angle is like to think about it that the stars are just basically like reflecting what's already happening, right?
yeah,
Like that's my preferred way of
exactly.
looking at it. It's not like we're not predicting like these things are already the cornerstones are already being laid down, like everything's being laid in. It's just showing us like this is what's happening based
Hmm.
on what's happening because that's how, yeah, but it is incredible that there is like a mathematics to things.
And what we can say for sure, after we have dissected Elon's chart and compared it with the US and his role that he has been playing with the US for some time, and that he's now reaching a place of high political influence and involvement, we shall say.
Mhm.
Whether one thing we know for sure with zodiacal releasing is even posthumously people's charts can play out in sending them public. There have been
That's true.
writers, I can't remember, it was an episode with Chris Brennan and Lisa, and they were talking about third house publications, and I think it was Maya Angelou or another writer,
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah, I think I
how
remember that one.
yeah, and
Yeah.
after she had passed, one of her
Mhm.
books came, or this writer's, I have to go back and remember which one they were talking about. The writer's works came to light publicly, and had this person still been alive, it would have happened during a peak period. So your influence of your chart, should you become large enough in the public sphere, can still influence things. So my take on all of this is that Elon, from now with our Pluto return and the Uranus going into Gemini and all these outer planets and this huge shift that's happening globally, Elon
Mhm.
Musk and the United States will go down in history and will be a turning point in our history forevermore. Like, we will now not be able to, in my opinion, be able to separate him and the U.S. From this point forward in our history. It will be written in the history books. Like, he's
I
already
think
made
so.
his mark, but
Yeah.
I think we're going to
Yeah.
see much more of it.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
alrighty then. Um, so anything else?
No, I think that we have covered it all.
It was
I
pretty
would like
thorough.
to invite anybody, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down below. And you can find me at thewildmeridian.com or Jen at globalcitizenastro.com.
Yep. Yeah.
So
Let
much.
I almost feel like I need to like discharge it, like just go like ground myself outside. I feel like get out of the chaos that is like what could be happening in this country, like what is going on here with
Yeah, I
everything,
mean,
and just
let's ask chat to give us like an ending blessing or prayer. There. Okay. Let's do a closing blessing for clarity and balance. May the weight of the conversation now settle like dust in a quiet room. May the thoughts that stirred be like waves returning to the calm shore. May the energy that lingers find its rightful place, not heavy upon us, but released to the wind, not binding us, but teaching us. May our minds remain sharp, but our hearts unburdened. May we walk forward with clarity, holding only what serves us and letting go of what does not. The stars continue their course, as do we. May we move with grace, purpose, and peace. So it is, and so it shall be. Amen.
amen. Yes.
There we
Good
go.
call. Good, great idea to finish on that note, Tia. I was like, how do we now? It's like, oh,
That's a lot. I mean, we channel so much.
it's a lot. Yeah. And just to leave people with that too, so they don't feel like no sort of anxiousness connected to it.
No.
Feel free to go
Yeah.
outside and ground yourself and just sit down on the earth and take a deep breath and just know that no matter what, everything is going to be okay. You're going to be okay.
Yep. Everything's going to be okay.
Everything's
As my sister would say, as the Roman Empire was collapsing, I'm sure there was just regular people going about their regular lives. We all
fine.
made it through, and we will
Yep.
again this time as well.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. And we have, we got some perks. We got electric. They didn't have that. So
Yeah. Yeah, we've got so much to be grateful for and so many more tools at our hands. And to know that this round of external transits actually fall into a sweet, sweet trine of supportive, loving energy. Um, I think if we all
yeah.
aim for the higher good, it will occur.
Yeah, Uranus is going to be in trine to Pluto too. Exactly. Yeah, there's going to be that trine from Uranus to Pluto, Uranus and Gemini, Pluto and Aquarius. So
Yeah.
that's like super, super helpful. So there's that. My brain, I just said, I was like, we have electricity. And then I was like, and then the other part of my brain went, not if we get a cyber attack. And I was like, stop.
Oh God.
Okay, no, no, no.
Whew.
Clear
Take
it
that
out.
out. Take that out.
Relax, chill. Don't worry. Yeah,
Keep
it's
them
all
books
good.
around, all right? There could be a blackout.
I always keep the books around anyway, for sure. Um, and yeah, for sure.
All right.
And keep them and hope that nobody comes to burn them. Sorry. There again. Stop. I'm like, stop it.
What is going on with your transits today,
I,
girl?
I don't know. It's just my it's the whole it's my life transit, my natal chart.
Oh, yeah. No, I hear ya. It's one
Right.
bump after another right
It's
now.
yeah, by the way, are you aware that you share the same Sun Saturn conjunction as Arnold Schwarzenegger in Leo? I don't know. I don't know.
No.
I was recently researching his ZR and just because I was like looking into like honing in on my ZR, and when I saw his is in the second house though, but when I saw that, of course, automatically I thought of you.
Oh,
I was
Shades.
like,
I didn't know that. Me and Arnold.
I know
Huh.
someone with that Sun
Yeah,
Saturn
I'm in
conjunction.
that 11th house. Like